Welcome, everybody, to our live show ahead of qualifying for the Canadian Grand Prix. We thought it was going to be an easy week. Just settle in with Piastri, McLaren, and Ferrari. Bring in Hulkenberg if you'd like, and then just set and forget for the week. But then the grid had other ideas for us. It's been madness through all 3 free practice sessions, and now we have questions about our 2X driver, our second constructor, and everything in between. Zach, you're coming to us from Greece this week. Can you hear us? How you feeling?
Yeah, just about. I'm feeling quite happy about it now. I did worry a little bit about the team, obviously instantly when I saw FP3 results, but now after recovering from exactly that, knowing I can move, just stick with Ferrari, it should be completely fine.
And Terry, you've got the festive background this week. How are you feeling after seeing free practice? You're usually the one of us that's more bullish about Red Bull, but they definitely seem like they're on the back foot this week. Did you get the same vibe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm nowhere as exotic as Zach. I'm actually in my kitchen, rather than the shed. So kudos to Zach for being on holiday and tuning in. But no, I mean, for me, Red Bull, you can normally pick a free practice where they've come back with the goods and they've come back to the forefront, especially Max, but they just don't look on it at all today. There's nothing there which gives you the sort of hope that there's anything in which they're hiding or anything they're sandbagging or anything at all whatsoever. They just look completely off it. They look like they don't get the setup right, and it looks like they're in problems, that's for sure.
Let's dive into some of these free practice times just to get a sense of how we got to this state of panic over the last 48 hours. We're looking now at free practice 2 results. We had this situation with Leclerc that set everything off back in FP1. He damaged the chassis of his car. Ferrari held him out for all of FP2, and that allowed Mercedes to run to the top of the grid. Meanwhile, Leclerc's teammate Hamilton struggled down in P8, and so that set off this panic of maybe we need to make a mass shift from Ferrari to Mercedes. We had these same signs at last year's Canadian Grand Prix, didn't listen. Ferrari had a double DNF, Mercedes finished P3 and P4, and it was a 70-point gap between the two. So I think that fueled a lot of those fears from us. But then when we get to free practice 3, things get a little bit more clear. It looks like both McLarens are looking a bit better. Leclerc went out and posted a banker lap right at the beginning of FP3, and he and Hamilton also looking more at grips with the car. Was this enough, guys, to keep Ferrari in your lineups this week?
I mean, for me, Mercedes looked like they turned everything out, didn't they? I mean, Charles Leclerc was a victim of FIA rules and not being able to run in FP2, which kind of feels bonkers, really, doesn't it? That, I know they would have struggled to get his car fixed, but even if they got it fixed, they wouldn't be able to run him. But I mean, for me, Ferrari, they did enough, I think, in free practice for you to come back on the board, back into play. Mercedes, there's still those big question marks, isn't there, over cooling. Their upgrades this week were geared towards that as well. So they've got some big question marks over that one. I don't feel, I'm going to say it now, and probably we'll clip it for later, but I don't feel that Ferrari made the same mistakes this year as what they did last year. Fatal last for us, that one, aren't we, all week long? But no, you kind of hope that with what happened in China to them, and obviously what happened here last year, that actually that they've got a setup which isn't going to get them disqualified.
Yeah, and Ferrari, it was a fluky situation here last year. Remember, very, very rainy weekend. So far, knock on wood, everything's supposed to be dry. Leclerc had a DNF due to some reliability issues. Carlos Sainz had a weird fishtailing moment where he ping-ponged into Alex Albon. And so these are the kinds of things I don't expect to happen 2 years in a row. But hey, this is Montreal where anything is possible. It seems like drivers were struggling with grip throughout all 3 sessions, regardless of what tire compound they're on. So I think we're going to have a little bit of drama as the sessions go on.
Yeah, definitely. And that C6 tire was interesting in FP1 where no one run the mediums, because it seems like no one really wants to run the C6 tires in anything competitive other than a 1 lap in qualifying, maybe. So that might play a part as well, to be honest. Especially if you're Charles Leclerc and have got a few sets still in the locker after what happened in free practice as well. So that might come into play a bit.
Ooh, that's an interesting advantage, right? No tires for Charles in FP2 means he's got a little bit more for qualifying in the race. He can dangle around with different... If the medium compound is the faster tire, he could run it deeper in qualifying or have a fresh set for the race. So good points, Terry.
Absolutely. Cool. Chat's alive today, isn't it?
Well, we went from being really bored to being a bit nervous. Now, for those of you that are wondering, I just talked to Ryder a little while ago. I know a lot of people were concerned. He's in Australia. It's the middle of the night. Are we getting a sim? We are. So keep an eye out for those of you that have alerts on your phone from F1 Fantasy Tools and let us know in the chat. I'll be sure to refresh it and we can break it all down live.
Yeah, please do, because that FP2 one is very geared towards Mercedes, isn't it?
Yes. Now, I think the other big question as we look at the BetMGM betting lines for this week, Lando with each session has inched farther and farther away from Piastri. Piastri's the championship leader. He's been the consensus 2X driver in this game for most of the season. And now he's putting us in a weird spot, not really getting much higher than P6 in any session this weekend. Do we make that move to Lando? And so there are a lot of questions in the chat of, do I keep Final Fix in hand? Do I start the week with Lando? It's a very interesting question because there's such a big price gap between the two drivers. You do have to plan ahead for it a little bit. So if you start with Piastri, you do need to leave that extra $7 or so million so you can get into Lando with the Final Fix, or you just have to bite the bullet and start the week with Lando. So I think we're going to see a lot of teams jostling with that decision.
I will say on the Final Fix situation, it's a little bit complicated because I fully get the whole keep Piastri, Final Fix to Lando Norris, and then hope for the best that he wins the racing stuff. But let's say Lando keeps up with the pace he's been doing, gets pole position, wins the race. He's not really a very popular driver at the minute, so he probably still wouldn't get driver of the day. And then you have someone like Oscar Piastri, if he carries on with what he's been doing in the practice sessions, qualifies somewhere like 5th and 6th, maybe gets up to 2nd or 3rd with race pace, he might end up getting driver of the day plus so many like overtake points and position gain points that it ends up not being that much of a difference between them. So just be careful about that sort of thing.
This is around the point in the video where I remind everybody to make sure you hit that like button. Terry is holding me to it. We need a certain number of likes before we can dive into your lineup. So make sure you do hit it if you're hearing me now.
I think the thing, looking at, Rick's asked a couple of times, obviously, about Final Fix. The thing for me is you got to leave that budget free, haven't you? And that's where I think the real sort of kicker for everybody this week's going to be is leaving enough money on the table to switch into Lando. What happens if you don't need to make that switch then, doesn't it? So then you're left with a chance where I think here we'll probably come on to budgets where we know that Zach's been sitting in a good position after accumulating the past few weeks. But if you can't run a Hulkenberg and Lando, you have to make your choice. If you're running Oscar, you're probably going to bring in Hulkenberg, which will then stop you Final Fixing Lando back in potentially. So I think there's some calls to be made on that as well, which actually are probably fair to say that it might put Final Fix out of the options if you do that. And this is Oscar, the championship leader. He's bound to have a few bad runs. The only thing for me is I think to Monaco, when he was off the pace, he was off it all weekend by the end of it. So is this a sort of trend with Oscar that if he's not on it from the off, he doesn't come to the forefront, whereas when Lando's on it, he comes to the forefront. Whereas the drivers they pick up as the weekend go on, it seems to be with Oscar. If he's not in those top sort of couple as such, he doesn't tend to put out the bag for the race itself. So is that what we're seeing here or not? But I don't know.
It's going to be really interesting. I think you're going to see an even split of people running Lando versus Oscar. And I show the sims just so we can look at the prices here. It's not updated yet for FP3, but you can see 6.2 million between Piastri and Norris. So if you start with Oscar, you'd need to leave 6.2 open so that you can get into Norris. Of course, you could get into either of the Ferrari drivers for less money. And our 2024 champion, Anders, in the chat saying that the odds for this week are underestimating Leclerc, probably because there's not a lot of data from FP2, but he did look really good in FP3. So could be an interesting option as a Final Fix or a nice bold start to your week as the 2X driver. It's gonna be a wild ride these next 45 minutes or so.
I will say on the Norris as well. Just another thing to think about for him is another reason I'm quite happy to consider him over Piastri a lot more is for anyone who was thinking of playing it safe with Piastri is Austria tends to be probably Norris's best track on the calendar pace-wise. So then you'd also have, it's obviously we don't know yet, but it's highly likely that he'll be on pace there as well. So it's just one less transfer to think about over there.
Yeah.
A lot of these questions in the chat about who we go with and what our final fix options are, a lot of stuff is predicated around budget. And it feels like it's such a double-edged sword. I'm floating the idea of having Lando as a final fix option or starting the week with him. But some of our friends in the chat can't afford Lando as a final fix. Others, I think, Terry, you and I can't afford Lando and Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
Zach can afford both of them. So now, do we go with these lineups that are points heavy and taking a week off on some of those cost cap gains? But then that would just drive a bigger wedge between teams like mine and Terry's versus teams like Zach's. Or do you try to ride a line between the two of them and hope everything holds together throughout the weekend? So this is another interesting thing to consider. Not having budget means there are fewer options to go into, but it also will increase your deficit if you don't start thinking about budget.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Leapfrog is in there saying the same thing with budget. Look, no budget for. Do I see there? No budget for Norris with Ferrari. Not confident in Piastri. See, so I think we're seeing that budget squeeze quite a bit on a few of these. That's for sure.
Yeah, and as we think about some of the lineups we talked about at the beginning of the week, Zach, these McLaren and either V-Carb or Sauber second drivers that allow you to run two premium drivers, I think this is where some teams are considering autopilot. Do you run a Piastri and Leclerc with the autopilot to buffer against some of that? I don't know.
Do we think that Oscar's not going to get back on the podium, though? Yeah, going back to Zach's point, even if he qualifies low down. Big long straights, McLaren is still looking remarkably good. We know that McLaren's qualifying pace is actually slower than their race pace. We know that all of the teams are closer in qualifying than what they are in race pace. So you'd expect that advantage. We've seen this all season. Over one lap, McLaren aren't stand out the fastest car, but actually over race pace they have been. So we've seen this all season long, where even if the McLaren may have struggled to get pole, as soon as it goes into race mode, the way it saves its tyres, the way it works on that tyre saving strategy that they've clearly got going on, then it will come into play quite easily. And with no rain due, you kind of go back to the basics of which cars look after their tyres better, which you then obviously bump straight into the McLaren's going to do that. So barring safety car drama, and actually a safety car could suddenly put someone like Oscar back into play if he's way down. Because we know around here, 20 seconds, we've seen it with Lando, with wherever the safety car comes out, can catch you out, all sorts of things like that. So is it too much of a knee-jerk to just bin him off straight away and go, actually, we're going to switch to Lando?
And a safety car feels likely based on what we've seen in free practice. It doesn't matter what compounded tire or how rubbered in the track is. There are drivers spinning. It seems like every 10 minutes.
For no reason. They're just spinning, And, they're just randomly spinning, And we only need one of them groundhogs to come out as well, don't we, at the wrong time and cause chaos on the track as well. So there's all sorts that can go on from that point of view, which then leads you back
groundhogs.
But then leads you back towards actually, a lower qualifying Oscar potentially gaining points at overtakes and stuff, and then potential for driver of the day. Actually, is this a time to stick with it? I'm more convinced.
I completely agree. Because I have seen some people also wondering, okay, if I want to get rid of Piastri to get Norris in, would it be worth going Ferrari down to Mercedes? So you'd have Norris and Mercedes if that was the budget you could be working with. But I don't think that's worth it. I'm in complete agreement with you, Terry. I genuinely do think 99% chance if Piastri still qualified 5th and 6th, he would be at least 3rd come the end of the race.
Yeah.
Which then the gap to Norris points-wise wouldn't be that much.
That's what I mean.
Terry, I want to pull on a thread you had talked about earlier, because D13 in the chat asks, are we expecting a lot of overtakes like last year? And one of the things that's different this year compared to recent Canadian Grand Prix is that it's not raining. And so you're not going to have this shift of slicks to wets and inters back to slicks where some of that overtaking could happen. The other dry years that we've had were fairly low overtaking. So I do wonder what that's going to give us, because there's also the component of having the C6 tire where a one step softer than we had been. And the last time this happened was at Imola, and it did go from a low overtake to a medium overtake kind of circuit. So maybe we'll get that effect again this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure we're going to see too much of the C6 tires. I think they're trying to avoid them where they can. So I think the thing with Challenger is it hasn't got that many massive overtaking parts when you think about it. You take out, the big long straight at the back going into the hairpin, that side of things. There isn't much opportunity aside from those to actually get past on this track. It's not a high maneuver area. So I think we'll go down to the lower end of overtakes with a dry race because actually DRS will be open. You won't have that different strategy. So I think they cancel each other out. I think strategy-wise, well, I look at free practice 1, they've all got the same concerns over the tyres, which makes me think they're all thinking the same thing on the strategy, which means I don't think you're going to see anyone offsetting, or I don't think you're going to see anything sort of doing anything radical. The C6 tyre doesn't give you anything radical to offset against. It's not like it can hold up to a large number of laps, or it's not like you can run it and try something different. You might be able to bolt it on towards the end potentially and get some places back if you're chasing someone with maybe a late safety car that puts them into play, maybe. But in terms of a race tyre, you're going to go medium hard compound in whatever order you've got with the different ones you've got on that one too. Michael's just put there, does Charles have an extra medium? Possibly. I'm sure he does because he hasn't used any in FP2. And you have to give back the same amount of tyres back, whether or not you took part or not. So in theory, he should have his tyres from FP2 available to him now still, unless he did something, run extra ones in FP3, which I can't see that he did from what I saw. So
that's something I've got to sort out because when I tuned into FP3, it was about maybe 7 or 8 minutes in, and Charles had already put in a few laps and strapped in a new set and then put in a few more laps. So I don't know if he's maybe scrubbing off a lap or two on some of them. So they're new-ish, but not perfectly new. I wonder if that's
it's really hard to keep track of as well. They're not very good at monitoring what tires are on there until afterwards. So you always get that graphic, tends to be like a couple hours after, which tells you what sets they got left, etc. But during the actual session themselves, you quite often hear people getting it mixed up and seeing what's on there. They're not very good at tracking which one's on there. Same with scrub tires. They're not very good at sort of saying who's gone out and just put a lap on them. How many times do you see it on a race day? They come out and they say there's no new sets, and reality is they're scrub sets. That's why, where they've only done one lap and come back in. So it's not always the most reliable, and especially with the broadcasters not being able to catch up on it. But I would imagine even when the amount of run he did what? So he did 29 laps compared to Lando's 24. So that doesn't make me think extra set of tyres because it's only 5 more laps. So that does make me think that he's burnt for an extra set of tyres for that. You'd expect if he's going to do an extra one, he would have put more laps on the board than 5 more.
Guys, we interrupt this chat about tires with some breaking news from Tiffany. It is free practice 3 sim time. So let's unpack this together. The gap from Norris to Piastri has increased from 1.5 points or so to 3.2. So pulling apart a little bit.
But it's still not massive, is it?
It's not massive.
It's not massive.
No.
Let's come down the grid a little bit just to see if there's anything else crazy. Lots of love for the Williams drivers. I think particularly Sainz this week. I think Albon's in a bad position for budget, but Sainz looking pretty good.
I'm quite surprised with Alonso being that low. He's been
a lot of you in the chat are asking Alonso or Colapinto, but for points, I think you got to imagine Alonso. He's looked pretty good so far.
Yeah.
And then Colapinto and Bortoletto basically a coin flip at the bottom. You're just trying to figure out who can make it to the end of this race because they'll probably be 19th and 20th if everyone finishes.
Ocon's getting a lot of love as well, isn't he, in the Sims? What's Ocon's budget? Yeah. What's going on with Ocon? Why is he getting a lot of love?
Well, he's 7.5 million for price, so decent enough price. Maybe people were excited about Haas's 200th race.
I don't know. He's not that much due a gainer, is he? If I missed him with him,
let's check it out.
He's sort of in he's right in that weird middle ground. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much even odds of anything happening to Ocon's budget.
Well, actually, to be fair, 28% is higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He seems to sneak up somewhere, doesn't he?
And so if you're between Colapinto and Bortoletto, like so many of us are, I know Terry and I are thinking about how do we get an Alonso? Do we replace Colapinto or Bortoletto? This might be the bean on the scale that points me toward Colapinto, is that slightly better chance of him gaining money this week.
See, I could just keep Oscar and bring in Hulk. And then Colapinto, and then Alonso as well for good measure.
Yes, you could bring in Hulk, just bank that 0.6 million, and then move on.
Because I've got Colapinto anyway, and I've got Bortoletto, so I could actually just keep with Piastri, I've got 3 transfers still.
Another interesting
Ooh,
interesting thought here is the difference between the 0.1 and 0.3 million for Piastri and Lando. Oscar needs a lower total for the max.
Wow.
That's what I mean, see?
Norris had a down week.
That makes it. See, all of that again. Colapinto is always looking dangerously close to DNF. That is a very good, valid point. Yeah.
I think we could say the same, though, for all of the Bortoleto, Alonso, and Colapintos.
I was going to say Alonso, yeah. It's one of those Bortoleto or Alonso. Ricardo said the same.
Usually we're all totally prepared for the show. We have our lineup set. It's just a matter of when we reveal it and talk about it. I think all 3 of us are in a panic trying to figure out Piastri or Norris to start the week.
Yeah. Going back to that Bortoleto and Alonso stuff, I at the start of the week was on, I'll add Colapinto to this as well. I was on the Colapinto because he just needed less points to get the budget. But after seeing the practices, I do think if Alonso does get a top 7 result, the points are worth the loss of a 0.2 million for me.
Yeah, this has been a question all year is what is the points to budget trade-off where you need to lean into one or the other? Whew. How are we looking for likes?
I was just looking at people locking in their transfers to see what they've been doing as well. Sorry.
I will say as well, I have made my decision and I have scheduled mine for Twitter in 9 minutes.
Great. I'll schedule mine in 10 minutes.
I just won't schedule mine. I'll just post it with a minute to go like normal.
Zach, are you able to throw a poll in the chat of Lando versus Oscar? I think this is going to be a big one.
Absolutely.
I can't at the minute with my screen. Annoyingly.
It's okay. It's a downside of being on vacation.
If you're going to pick Lando, if you're going to pick Lando or you're going to pick Oscar, hit the like button.
Terry, are we at a point where I can switch over to lineups yet, or do we still need some more likes?
I think we'd switch to lineups.
All right, let's do it.
But don't let them off the likes. If you pick one of those, you got to hit like.
Let's go in.
Next one here would be fine.
Let's start with Havoc. So early thoughts for Canada. Not sure between Hulk and Lawson for the last driver. For me, when in doubt, Hulk is a much surer lock as long as he finishes the race to get that 0.6 million. So I would take him over Lawson. Also, he's raced Canada so many times. I don't think. I mean, he did obviously have that spin or the very close call in FP3 where he got the front and the rear wing caught up. So nobody's perfect, but I'd lean toward Hulk.
Yeah, I think the one caveat I will say to some of these lineups before people send in chat is these probably went in before FP3 as well. So we might be seeing a lot of, if you're seeing a lot of Oscar, it might not be representative of what people are thinking. So just some people do submit theirs early, don't they? So there might be a bit of that in if you do see this, where you think actually no one's going for Lando at all. Just silence now. Look, just dropped a spanner in it. Look.
I'm really at a loss of which way to go now. I thought I had an idea going into this, and now I really don't. All right, Race Maven wants to know 1.1 million left. Switch Gasly for Colapinto and Red Bull for Ferrari. Definitely Red Bull for Ferrari. On merit was dead last in FP3.
Yeah, just get out of Red Bull.
So lost. And even Max was just fighting the whole time. He wanted nothing to do with the car the whole session. So I'd get out of Red Bull.
Yeah, definitely get out of Red Bull for Ferrari.
And I don't know if these two are related. You have to go Gasly to Colapinto to afford Ferrari going up from Red Bull. If that's the case, I would do that.
Yeah, if you've got to do that, then do it. If not, I'll probably say keep Colapinto. If you don't have to, but if you have to make that move to make the other one, then yeah.
And Race Maven's in the chat. Hi, Race Maven. All right.
Can we just appreciate Adam Spadin if you're welcome on that one? Because
I know I'm trying to have one eye on this screen, one eye on the chat, and then one eye on my phone where I'm trying to do my lineup, and it's just
I'm giving Adam all the work this week.
It's not good.
Zach is for all of you in the chat. We do apologise, but Zach is truly on holiday because So
not got my usual setup.
Yeah, Zach, it was enough to get Zach on Wi-Fi, so he's probably using his data allowance on his phone or something. So when he gets back, he's gonna have a £400 phone bill for live streaming.
Well, Zach, thanks for spending your vacation with us. We are very
wouldn't miss it for the world.
Nicholas has 114 million, second place in his league, wants as much points and budget as possible. So we're trying to ride the line here with Oscar, Max, and V-Carb.
If you're going to go V-Carb, I'll probably even think about switching Max out for maybe a Charles or someone. Yeah, if you're gonna run that and run the second constructor to afford two premium drivers, I think that you could probably get more better value than Max in there. Just looking straight out from the top of my head.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but if you did get rid of Verstappen there, because the budget's there for upgrading Piastri up to a Norris and having Leclerc still in there. That's
what I'm thinking. There's definitely room there's definitely room to do more than I think having Max in there as your second driver. And I'm normally team Max on a lot of these things, but I really can't see him putting out the bag this weekend unless there's a torrential downpour that no one's knowing about. It's probably the only thing that would probably play Max into play at the moment. Currently looking at it would be rain or a safety car, which puts them into it.
I will say, because we haven't seen this team composition a lot so far on the live stream, but I genuinely, because coming in from Spain into this weekend, I thought people would have to revert from these teams. But now with so much of the Ferrari pace coming in from FP3, that Mercedes pace in FP2, it actually looks like these sorts of teams could end up being half decent if, again, we have another situation where even McLaren don't look the best. There's just so much up in the air where, these could really shine through.
Adam, have you fixed your lineup? Is that what you've been doing?
I've been feebly trying to assemble some options for a lineup. Paul Lev wants to know, what would you do in this scenario with 3 free transfers? I don't feel good about Sauber this week.
Yeah.
I think this is a lineup that we had floated back on the preview show that I think I'd like to backpedal from a little bit. I'd probably only go as low as V-Carb on the second constructor, because Sauber could lose out as many as 50 or 60 points to an elite constructor.
Yeah, definitely.
I would, yeah.
I mean, I know it allows you to run George potentially, doesn't it? But what's the difference between Sauber and V-Carb? Can you still run George on that one? I
guess it depends on how much leftover budget they have. Considering how cheap the other 3 drivers are, it would probably have to go down from George.
Yeah, I think what the difference from Sauber to V-Carb is around 5 million.
Yeah, so maybe that's why. Maybe they've done it to bring George in as the second driver. Final decision, Ferrari or Merc. It's definitely Ferrari for me at the moment.
Yeah.
I think with what they've got points wise as well and budget wise as well, it puts them in a better position than what Mercedes does.
It comes back to that old thing we like to talk about as well with the pit stop points, where anytime Ferrari and Mercedes look, Ferrari looks better as well, but let's say anytime they're equal or better, Ferrari with the pit stops normally come through and pip Mercedes to the line. So it's I think it's an easy choice from here.
It's an interesting one. Just while before we scroll on, Ferrari and Piastri or Mercedes and Norris. That's an interesting call. That's a proper on the fence with that one, isn't it? To be honest, because if you call that one right, then actually you could get a massive jump in the points wise if you call that one right and something happens in the race that goes your way. Likewise, if it goes the other way, it could be disaster for you. I mean, that's a proper coin toss as well. I'm not too sure which side of the fence I'd fall off on that one.
I have a feeling that with that sort of difference in lineup, it will come down to Mercedes Ferrari, who's going to have a DNF this weekend. Yeah. If anything like that happens, that's going to be the call.
But then Ferrari, Norris, pounds. Oh, it's a tough one.
I'm going Piastri and Ferrari. If it helps nudge you one way or another.
Are you keeping Oscar now? for
I'm
your
on the
line.
fence. I'm on the fence still. When is Zach's 9 minutes up yet?
Of 1 more minute and it should be scheduled up.
Oh,
How many
my
more
God.
lineups we got?
Oh,
I'm
tons. This one's from Brian. Maybe
saw-
swap Ferrari for Mercedes. I probably wouldn't do it at this point. I actually like this team. You've got both V-Carb drivers and Hulkenberg likely to go up. Behrman will probably get you some points. Maybe not a huge shout for budget this week, but decent as a midfield driver for points.
I mean, you could potentially keep that and swap Behrman out, couldn't you? If that's your if you've got enough transfers to do it. Looking at that, I would keep Ferrari definitely. Rich put a good point in there. Lose budget with Mercedes is another one. I to be honest, I would keep that and maybe look at swapping Behrman out for someone to get some points if that's where your transfer is. So I'm assuming you might have had to stay on that one, or if you're in the chat, Brian, just let us know how many transfers you got, or if that's your team that you currently got. Because look at that, I think you might be able to do something with Behrman there and potentially get a bit more cost cap, if nothing else, compared to points wise to what Ollie's due to go up on.
Yeah,
All right, Zach, you ready for?
Yeah, go on. Let's do it. Hopefully it should.
This is the first drumroll moment of the day. I did not have Twitter up, so who knows if Twitter's currently crashing and burning at the moment.
I'm glad that was one of his better sort of screens to fall back on.
Oh yeah, make sure I close my OnlyFans before we come on. Not to worry. That'll be how I monetize this someday.
Hopefully it has uploaded. It should have been scheduled for them.
Wouldn't it be funny if you know?
It's there.
It'd be funny if I didn't follow you anymore.
Yeah, real. But yeah, I am. It's hard to hold in the grin when I look at the team I was able to get for this weekend with free transfers coming into Austria. I did think of sticking with Colapinto, but I thought to myself, I don't even know if Colapinto is going to get that budget increase. And with how Alonso's looked, I have that free transfer to do it. Why not go for it? So Norris and Ferrari and Hulkenberg, very, very exciting times.
All right, that's another being on the scale of Lando as I think about what I'm going to do.
To be honest, I'm looking at that, and with the exception of Norris, I mean, I've obviously got Piastri, like I said at the top of the show, I can't afford both. I'm thinking that apart from that looks pretty much where I was sat before obviously FP3, just obviously with Oscar rather than Lando. So I'm tempted to just go with that. I'm tempted to just lock it in, just wing it.
Just throw caution to the wind, Terry. There you go.
Right, I did that last time out with like a minute to go, remember? Literally. Someone loves the show and have to maybe put like.
Oh, that's producer Greg sending us some love because he's in Montreal this week. All right, who do we have here? Oh, okay, we have Luca. 106.5 million. So I think might be time for Luca to get a little bit of cost cap gain. Maybe change some B tier drivers, but other than that, strategies to have at McLaren. I like the team on the right. You get a piece of Williams. They are. Let me come back here for a sec. Maybe Williams are a little less likely to go up in value though because of the DNF in Spain. So perhaps go with V-Carb in the same spot as Williams. Allow you to rotate a little more of that money around, but then you do have some cost cap gainers here.
It is a shame that Williams, Spain was so bad for Williams, but just considering Williams will never be on the points of I don't think even Mercedes this weekend or a Ferrari, it would be more for bringing it in for the budget, and when they're not getting you that budget, it just wouldn't work.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a quick question, Adam. Trevor's asked this as well. Why is the hype about Sainz on the Sims?
If we go back to some of the free practice results, they've been sitting Williams consistently right at the edge of the top 10. And this is a big comeback for how lost they looked in some of the previous races. I think there's some excitement about Sainz there. And he's also one of the most selected drivers in the game. I think I checked in the middle of the week. He was at the 40% selected or so. So I think a lot of people just want to see Carlos turn it around. And then also, too,
But
if
he's
we
not
look
that.
at signs, there's a shout of him gaining value this week, but I think they're just looking at some of the points projections. They've got him
That's
at
what I mean.
8.4 right
I
now.
just wondered, like, because my sim, when I put my team in, the sims are going towards Saints, and I'm just looking at it thinking it doesn't look overly attractive, and I just wondered if I'm missing something. Not from his hair, by the way. His hair looks very attractive. Can I just say that? I wish I had hair like Carlos.
Yeah, I think he just comes out of bed
from
with
the
that head of hair, too.
Yeah. I mean, that hair routine is epic. I mean, if Williams social media could drop that in, I'd appreciate that.
Christy says, I just transferred out signs for Alonso. Don't do this to me. The Terry curse is real, Chris.
Sorry, Chris. I'm just looking at it thinking, why is it? Trevor got me thinking, And now I can't stop thinking about Carlos's hair, which is even worse.
Yeah, I'm very surprised to see 13% in signs.
That's what I mean.
0.6.
Just for me, it just seemed really strange that he was appearing so high on the projector ones, and even on the team calculator one when I put my team in. It's saying basically I should transfer everyone out and bring in.
If you had a second wild card,
it's saying basically I should bring in Sainz, Alonso, and Ocon is what the sims say.
They've got to know something we don't.
Yeah, I'm not convinced on that. If I'm honest, I've got absolutely nothing against the sims from that point of view, but I'm just looking at it thinking, I think I'm missing something there.
All right, let's crank through a few more lineups because I'm hearing we've had a lot submitted in the last 15 minutes or so. Because it looks like we're not the only ones struggling.
Oh.
All right, M. McCarty says, help all over the place after FP3. Am I overthinking it? Probably, but so are we.
Yeah, I think we're all overthinking it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got Oscar, Lando, and then a Lando Kimi build at the end. I'll stop you at short of the last one. A Lando Kimi build means you are probably overthinking it because no McLaren is dangerous. I think they've scored something like 60 or 70 plus points in every race this season. And then Antonelli needs to have a pretty heroic week to not lose value. So I would rule out team 3. I think team 2 looks an awful lot like what Zach had booked in, except he has Hulkenberg.
Yeah, that is the only issue with that. It comes down to, like we were talking about this whole time, the whole debate of budget over points, because it's not a big difference, but that one change from Hulkenberg to Bortoletto is a 0.6 million difference in budget, which is crazy. And then so for that, we've got to think, okay, what is the difference between Piastri and Norris's points going to be on a 2 times? What do we think? 5 to 15 points different, maybe a little bit more potentially. And I don't think that's worth a 0.6 million decrease in budget. But again, purely because if that's the sort of team 1 that you can only afford now, I think you've still got to half look at what the budget is looking like as well.
Terry, I think your answer to this will determine what your lineup is this week, because this is basically our conundrum. It's
I know. I'm
Oscar and Hulkenberg versus Lando and Colapinto. This is going to be some heavy foreshadowing, but I'm leaning toward the middle team now. I'll leave everybody in suspense on Terry's thoughts, because I think he's going to be the big reveal toward the end.
Do you know what though? Because I could move Colapinto out as well, so I'm kind of now toying with that prospect, because I've still got the free transfers. So if I stick with Oscar, I can actually let's do a live one while we're here, shall we?
You can get out of a lot of those rookies if you have, because you ran Bortoletto and Colapinto last time, so you can get out of both of them.
I can go with Piastri, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Hadjar, McLaren, and Ferrari, which actually doesn't feel like a bad lineup to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
That's what I mean. And I could even swap out Lawson if I wanted to. I've still got 4.9 million in the bank.
Kevster wants to know, I just tuned in and didn't see any free practice. What happened? Oh, so much, Kev.
I was in the garden. I had to ask Adam what happened.
To make a long story short, Piastri's really having a hard time in Sector 3. He had a puncture, and so he missed part of the session, but he came back, never got higher than P6. Lando was a driver in form, just consistently putting in really good fast laps at the top of the timing table. Verstappen and Tsunoda are really struggling with the Red Bull. Ferrari appear to have come all the way back to be neck and neck with Mercedes. And as the temperatures get warmer, we think they're the constructor in form out of the two, if you're in between them. Also, spins everywhere.
I think so far this season, FP2 to FP3, that has to be the biggest 180 I've had ongoing. Oh, maybe Mercedes is going to be used. And then straight back to, no, Ferrari's fine.
JA2M's with me. Look, there you go. Perfect in the chat. Perfect. I think that looks like a good team. What's Trevor gone with? See that? Yeah, see. Trevor's gone for Sainz.
Sainz. That's a very veteran lineup, though.
Okay, I like that.
I mean,
you've seen enough of these rookies spinning.
I could swap Lawson out for Sainz. Would that be a bold move? I mean,
Joe asked in the chat, who to get rid of, Colapinto or Bortoleto? That's the $1 million question. If we look at the budget builder and the odds, Colapinto slightly better when it comes to gaining cost cap, but he was also all over the place in free practice. So it's a matter of, do you think Colapinto can at least hold on and just trundle around in P19 for the whole race, maybe make a couple of overtakes and sneak into that 0.2 million? Or are we going to chase the cost cap? He bins it, and Bortoleto would have been better.
That is why I wasn't too much of Colapinto. That 44% for the 0 increase in budget, I think it's just a little bit too high for me.
We've only got 20 minutes left, so it's high time I cover off two things. One is picks. We've only got 20 minutes to lock in our qualifying picks over on the FanAmp app. I know a lot of you are there because you're submitting your lineups. So let's run through this really quickly. Who finishes P1 through P3? Again, a smattering of both McLaren drivers with, I've got Charles Leclerc. Terry, you have Max Verstappen. Zach, you have George Russell.
I may have chosen that after.
Yesterday, come on. Can we just point out this was,
We did do this yesterday for anyone who saw P3 isn't sure. What position does Lance Stroll qualify in?
After FP1, can I just put that one into the mix as well,
Lance Stroll, I don't think any of us have terrible faith in Lance. Terry and I said probably closer to the bottom of P11 to P15, just squeaking in to Q2. Zach says P16 or worse, which is where he's ended up in most of free practice. A driver from which team qualifies P4? We got to imagine that's George Russell for Zach and I. And then Terry thinking that might be Charles Leclerc in P4. Yeah, after the 3 that he's listed here, that makes sense. Which driver goes closest to P10 without qualifying better? Terry thinks Hulkenberg. Ooh, that would be saucy.
Absolutely. I didn't really understand the question. I think I read it too fast. So that might be a mistake. We need to have a word with Greg how he words some of these questions.
Hey, that's okay. I say Hadjar. Zach says Pierre Gasly. It would be great to see Gasman.
Who qualifies closest to P10 without doing better? I mean, I'm sat there looking at it thinking, is this a riddle?
If a train leaves Los Angeles going 80 miles an hour and another train, it feels like what Mercedes driver has more rounds of qualifying than the other. We all pick George Russell. All right. I've stalled long enough. I will now share my lineup.
I'm excited to see this.
Have you just shared it? Because I've just shared mine and I haven't even looked at yours. Now I've locked mine in.
Oh, we don't know if Terry's covered me off this week. This is big news.
Ooh.
I have done the Diet Coke of Zach's lineup. Colapinto over Hulkenberg because I can't afford him. I have final fix if I royally messed up on the Norris pick, but my gut tells me last year, multiple free practices, we saw evidence of something. And that time it was Mercedes was better than Ferrari. I talked myself into thinking, don't worry, the historically better asset is going to come true in qualifying. And they just never did. I'm feeling those same vibes this year with Lando. He's consistently better. All of the evidence, the sims, the betting lines, all of the free practice data, it's forming this opinion in my gut that Norris ×2 will probably be the better asset this week. But we'll see. I was very wrong in Canada last year, so we'll see if I'm cursed or not. And so, Terry, you said you posted your team as
I did. I just said.
Oh, he's done it. And he's gone veteran, too.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Trevor made some really good points about some experience in there. and
The
it
science-
allowed me out.
Trevor's
of
right. The
rugby.
science train, it's leaving the station.
Yeah.
It's got some passengers now. Look at this. But I love how veteran this lineup is. You have a very mature rookie in Hajar, and then very, very mature veterans at the top of the team. So
Absolutely.
I like this.
Absolutely. The science train's left the station. That's so that it's not got a derailment going down that back straight. Otherwise, it's just all over for this season. I'll give up.
This is going to be a nail biter for qualifying. Oh my goodness. All right, this is our friend Yanmar, starting with 115.9 million. So you don't have to worry too much about cost cap this week. Option 1 is stay with the current team. Option 2 is same starting team with no negative, and option 3 is what we have on the right with Lando. I would say this question's come up in the chat. I'm not too interested in no negative this week because I didn't see any rain in the forecast. I think you might have 1 or 2 retirements of people betting it off, but I don't think it's going to be the same sort of Canada catastrophe we've had in recent seasons.
No, Wall of Champions is the one that's going to catch most people out, isn't it? Let's be honest about it. It's going to be there if anything. I don't think the weather's going to be a big part. I think a lot of the retirements we've had before have been caused by slippery tracks, changing tires, going out maybe on slicks when it's a hard call for intermediate. All of those sort of things have played a big part in it. So, sorry, we've just been laughing at Will's winning there. It could be the best hairstyle lineup ever. Could I just say?
Well, this is what happens when we don't pick our team before we come on stream. Is that really anything will influence us?
Yeah, Trevor, I won't be mad, mate. Don't panic, mate. You could be a hero, so don't write it off yet.
A quick public service announcement, by the way. When I went to edit my team before I set my lineup, I got a server error. I refreshed it and it was fine, but I just don't wait until the last minute because this could be catastrophic for some of you.
I actually keep getting that a lot
right now.
I've been getting that a lot for the past couple of weeks, actually. It doesn't look like it's fixed, but it keeps saying, operation could not be completed, but the lineups are there. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with it, to be honest, because it has been doing it. It has been doing it quite a bit over the past week or so.
We've got PWR Charlie in the chat, starting with Piastri and V-Carb. Like the look of Lando, but it would be Lando and Mercedes. I think that's where I draw the line of sticking with Oscar.
Yeah, I think so. I think the points we read, I'm going to be biased because I've obviously gone for Oscar, but Rick's made a good point. You could go final fix Piastri for Leclerc if you wanted to as well with that. That is an option.
Yeah,
really.
Start with Piastri and then see what happens from there. You have
so actually, Rick, you might save me if it all goes horribly wrong.
All right, our friend Mia's in the chat. Maybe this team. Well, yeah,
that's a good team.
That's a perfect
it looks
team.
solid.
Yeah, that looks a good team. You're getting good budget out of that one.
Yeah, I can't see anything really wrong with that. I think I would prefer Alonso over Bortoletto if that transfer was available. But other than that, I'm assuming you wouldn't have enough money to go up to a Hulkenberg. So yeah, Bortoletto to Hulkenberg for me. I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat about potentially final fixing Piastri to Leclerc as well. So obviously we haven't spoken about it a lot, but I think in my head, I'm worried if we did get an astonishing qualifying from someone like a Leclerc or a Hamilton or even a Russell, like someone puts it on pole that we're not expecting. The McLaren race pace, I do just worry about that.
I think that McLaren race pace is just something else. I think it's one of those where we said before that we haven't talked too much about tech because there isn't that much tech, to be honest. But the fact they were running test wings because their pace is that good at the moment shows you how confident McLaren are about their pace, despite what they might be saying outwardly to people and sort of in the press, that sort of things. They're quite clearly happy with their car by the fact they're using it as a testing ground on that one. Hakon's put about, are we concerned about the rookies? To be honest, it swayed my one with Sainz on there. Trevor made a really good point on that one where actually the Sims, Lawson's probably due to get more points on paper and bigger budget, but actually picking Carlos feels like a safer bet on that front. So I think there's an element of running too many rookies, which, you look at that one on the right, you could potentially look at is where the danger is, isn't it? If one of those drops out, I suppose the only thing in your advantage is a bit of safety in numbers, isn't there? That if everyone's gone with that lineup, everyone loses together, don't they? Potentially. So I think that's the other thing with the meta, isn't it?
Just another data point for those of you considering Piastri versus Norris. Porsche F1, the number 2 team in the world last year, went Norris and Colapinto.
Everything's just shouting Norris, isn't it?
The drama ramps up just a little bit further.
It's always Canada. It is always Canada, man.
It was always going to come to this, wasn't it? With those. Right, Adam, we got 10 minutes. What are we looking like? How are we doing?
We're doing great. I think we are done. Let's check.
Perfect.
Let's hit refresh to make sure there's nothing new in. Oh, looks like Misha's just testing the pipes for whoever comes in next. So let's come.
That could be Misha's team.
That's where my brain was when we hit the live.
So, that's what my lineup looked like an hour ago.
All right. If you have any other questions, feel free to fire them in. Now that I'm able to type in the chat either correctly or incorrectly, I can at least.
Alonso, Bortoletto, or Colapinto. Is that for just one driver, Lucas? Is that your option?
I think with those three, I think I'm Team Alonso. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's one of those, definitely.
I want Hummus has asked, is it worth taking a -10 to switch out Bortoletto for Hulk? Now, this is really hard because normally I would say absolutely no, but it's 0.6 million. I think it's worth it.
I don't have a true formula worked out in my head, but 0.6 million for 10 points feels good to me.
Yeah. I'm not sure that take a -10 and swap Alonso for Colapinto. Going back to
that's where I draw the line.
Yeah. Literally, I was just looking at that one. So maybe that's the sort of line, isn't it? And like you say, I think Hulkenberg and the budget one definitely. The other way, no. Hakon's put a quick team in the chat somewhere. In the FanAmp app. He's obviously getting nervous about the griddy. Was late this week. Don't think I didn't notice Hakon that you were late, but welcome.
Sarah wants to know what the meta is this week, and Sarah, we are all over the grid. Some of us are doing Piastri with Hulkenberg. Some of us are doing Norris and Colapinto. Zach has the good fortune of doing Norris and Hulkenberg. The reigning number 1 team in the world is leaning toward Leclerc. Got a lot of people thinking start with Piastri and then sort of final fix out, depending if he drops the ball in qualifying. That's 52 minutes in a nutshell.
We just need to take a minute to wish Hakon good luck in their exams, by the way.
Good luck.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, good luck.
Regular in the chat. So on the serious note, we all joke, but hopefully they go well. Worth dropping Ferrari to Mercedes to get Norris for Piastri. I wouldn't. Is my personal view on that one.
See, I've seen a chat from Hamza. So they say to fit Norris and Ferrari, I would have to have drivers like Lawson, Colapinto, Bortoletto, and Alonso. Basically asking, is it worth it? And that's where we come back to this point where we have to ask ourselves, how much is the points difference going to be between Piastri and Norris? And I think me and Terry both agree that it's not going to be crazy, a crazy difference. And then if you are subbing out, I'm assuming the likes of Hulkenberg and Hadjar, which are pretty clear-cut 0.6 millions, yeah, I don't think the points difference would be worth it.
And even I agree with it. I think going from Piastri to Lando is a bit of a budget luxury that I can do. I think it'll be some number of points, but not so crazy that you'll feel crazy for running Oscar. All right. I hear that Hakon's lineup might be here. Let's see. I don't think it's in yet. We'll give it another minute. See if it pops up.
If it doesn't come up, Hakon, just drop it in the chat quickly.
Yes. We're in the final countdown now.
Yeah.
If you haven't locked your lineup in yet, please do.
Don't want him to not lock his lineup in while he's waiting for it.
Reckless Medic has given his thinking on the whole budget situation. For a 1 million budget increase, they think it's worth roughly 40 points. So they are all on that 0.6 million for 10 points for the minus 10.
Hakon's dropped theirs in the chat.
McLaren, Ferrari, Norris, Hulkenberg, Colapinto, Bortoletto, Hadjar. That's almost exactly what Zach has, right? Or close to what Zach has. I think you have the V-carb drivers over the back markers.
Yeah, that's a brilliant team. I really like that.
Yeah, go with it, Hakon. Lock it in, definitely.
Yeah, we've only got 6 more minutes. 5 more minutes now.
What was Marvel's question? Marvel 001. Have you seen that one? Just trying to find
Marvel, I don't see your question.
What's going on?
Steven also risking it with Charles for the 2x. That is definitely a delta, but I mean, if he's looking fast here, it could be a huge advantage for you over the likes of McLaren drivers that the rest of us have.
Marvel's was, I had kick and triple McLaren in Spain. Is it worth it to swap to V-carb and Leclerc instead of Norris?
If you had triple McLaren in Spain and you're asking to move to V-carb, that probably meant you had Sauber to afford it.
That's what she said, yeah. Probably said, yeah. Yeah, I said, I had kick and triple McLaren in Spain. Is it worth it to swap to V-carb and then go Leclerc instead of Norris? Ooh. So I think they say move Sauber off and bring kick in. But then to do that, I think they're going to have to move off Norris to go to Leclerc. But then surely that would still leave you Piastri.
That is some long division. Let's see if we can work this out quickly.
Yeah. That's what I'm guessing. So I'm guessing you
Norris
have Piastri.
Norris to Leclerc is about 12. V-carb.
So I'm guessing then you'd have Piastri and Leclerc, and your two constructors would be Sauber, not Sauber, it would be V-carb and McLaren still. Looking at that one. I think I've read that right. Yeah, there you go. Basically,
this is going to get really interesting with the amount of people I've seen talking about using Leclerc now. We're going to have a lot of people on different teams.
Pandemonium.
With the 2 times.
So essentially, is it worth moving away from triple McLaren to bring in V-carb and Charles Leclerc? Isn't it? That's what.
Look at how much we would have a shift in the elite data. 98.4% running Piastri, 7 on Lando, 3 on Leclerc. The sort of shift we would have to have based on the sorts of chats we've been having today.
I do think it's going to happen as well, isn't it?
I mean, what would we say then? Would we say we'd go for that? I think go for it. I think going back to Marvel's question. I think yeah.
This is for replacing.
Triple McLaren. So you get rid of Kick Sauber and bring in V-carb, and then you've got Leclerc and Piastri.
I agree.
I'd say do it, yeah, and get out a kick.
And just to put some numbers behind why I've been so worried about Sauber, let's see if we can do this in the last minute or so here. 52 in Spain, that's great, but look at the rest of the season. That's probably what you're going to have to live with.
And it was boosted by all those things that went into it, wasn't it? You know, user for a transfer for Colapinto to Alonso, not if it's going to cost you a -10. I wouldn't say. If it's a free one,
I'd be probably a toss-up. If it was the third free one, you could roll it, and Colapinto has a slightly better odds of budget, but also slightly better odds of spinning. That might be a coin flip. Depends on how much danger you want to take.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel's put it's not a -10.
Oh,
I think you're fine. I'd say you're fine either way. Like, don't sweat it too hard.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. Just go with your gut feeling on it. To be honest, yeah, because I don't think it's going to make you a huge amount of difference from that point of view.
Gentlemen, we're down to our last minute here,
wow.
And I feel very uncomfortable once again.
That went very quick.
Oh,
Rick,
that was
thank you.
bonkers.
Thank you for the kind words and thank you for joining. Thank all of you
thank
for
everyone in
joining.
chat,
If you haven't liked, hit a like on your way out. Zach and I will be back to preview Austria in about a week or so. And
wow.
we might be bringing tissues, either happy tissues or sad tissues, depending on how this week goes. I think it's really going to be one of them.
I think this is the first one we've all gone off in different directions, isn't it? To be honest, we've been quite similar up until now recently. So I think actually it's probably the first one where, one of us is probably going to be happy and two are going to be quite sad. So it might be worth tuning in just for that, to be honest.
The big question is, will Terry remember to do his FanAmp picks for the race?
Probably not.
Awesome. Well, thank you all again so much for joining, and thank you to producer Misha for helping us out today.
Yes,
we'll see you in just over a week, and good luck. I think we're all going to need it.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.